Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 200
infrared eyes, scanning the black, tracking the heat, never turning back. Control 22, a covert gaze. Control 33, in the cosmic maze. Controls in the mix, secrets untold. Silent watchers, brave and bold. In the shadows, they silently glide, protecting our interest, far and wide. As fears, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alerting us to threats afar, guiding our defenses like a guiding star. In the silence of space, they keep their post, shields unseen yet feared the most. With precision and speed, they warn of danger, keeping us safe from the missile's anger. As beers, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alerting us to threats afar, guiding our defenses like a guiding star. Controls in the mix, secrets untold, silent watchers, brave and bold. In the shadows, they silently glide, protecting our interest, far and wide. As beers, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alerting us to threats afar, guiding our defenses like a guiding star. As beers, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alerting us to threats afar, guiding our defenses like a guiding star.
Hey chat, welcome to the stream tonight. It is Secret Science Wednesday. I'm your host, Ashton Forbes. Thank you very much for being here early. I appreciate you guys. It's awesome that we've been able to have so many live streams and talk about science, floaty orbs, conspiracy mysteries, cover-ups, and free energy. It's been fun, guys. Big shout out to Chad and Sherry from the Investigate Earth podcast. I was just on with them. Usually their stuff drops like the next day. So probably will be online tomorrow. You probably want to listen. A lot of people are asking me to weigh in on the new disclosure push that's been out there in terms of Immaculate Constellation. So I've been talking about that. If you want to hear my opinions on that, check out those guys' shows and support them. Tonight, it is about negative energy propulsion. Before we get to that, don't want to close this. There we go. I just want to address this new interview from Ross Coulthart. I haven't really been able to listen to it. Truthfully, I don't know if I will be able to listen to it because of this. How can I take this whistleblower serious, guys? Look at this picture of this cat in the background. Where do I get that? I need this picture of this cat in my background, like right here. I can't, like the whole time, all I'm thinking about is this cat in the background. So it does make me wonder. I'm not one of these people that thinks like everything's a big conspiracy, but like the fact that these are the people that like they literally put people on TV like this and they have giant pictures of cats in the background really just makes me wonder, man. Makes me wonder if this whole thing isn't a joke. I thought, well, maybe that was her cat, but no, it's clearly AI produced. It's not a real picture or anything like that. It's clearly AI. I mean, just... And truthfully, guys, so the other thing is that I made this post last night right before I went to bed about I'm going to be one of the top physicists in the world. And I knew it was going to attract some attention because it's definitely a little bit narcissistic, a little bit cocky and confident, egotistical and arrogant and all the other words. But it's true. It's true. It is true. I was speaking about this on Chad and Sherry. They asked me about the post and I'm like, look, I've seen the answers. Anybody who watches my live stream has seen the answers. Most physicists just don't realize that all this science is real, but it's all out there. Like the DIRDs are some of the most important papers ever. And I was reading the one that we're going to look at here tonight about negative energy propulsion, negative mass propulsion. And I'm just going, nobody else is talking about this. I'm one of the only people, influencers out there talking about this stuff. And you realize like you leapfrog all the other physicists and electrical engineers. Like if you see this half, and you guys literally my followers, people watching this stream right now, you know more about physics than like 90% of the community, the physics community out there and science community. And that's it's a unique position. There's not a lot of opportunities like this in the world, in life. And yeah, I'm happy for it. So I am going to keep learning too. And the other part of it is you just have to be dedicated. Like I'm sitting here like every night reading these scientific papers, and I know the ones that are good because I've already seen the answers. So I then find out, oh, well, this guy that we're going to be talking about tonight, his name is Friedwardt Winterberg. He studied his mentor. Who was his mentor? Werner Heisenberg, as in like one of the fathers of quantum mechanics, Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Like, yeah. So, this seems like a pretty good resource to listen to what he has to say. And I couldn't believe that he was saying everything that we've been able to figure out from the science. Like there's a very clear, it's not that like maybe they haven't figured out, you add all the papers up and then we've got one unified theory, but it's clearly the answer out there is 0 point energy, ether of energy. He literally even uses the term ether. Like what a G. We might have to add another guy onto our Mount Rushmore. Okay, so disclosure is a big joke, basically. And if the UAP hearings next month are not interviewing engineers, I don't want to hear what they have to say. I really don't give a crap about what some former admiral says about some glowy shit that was floating around, or somebody that's talking about they had telepathic communications from aliens. I don't want to hear about that at Congress. If I'm listening to that crap at Congress, I'm going to be ridiculing it and coming down hard on it. And hopefully Nancy Mace does as well. I want to know, where's the money going? Who's getting the money that our audits can't pass? What kind of programs are they building? And why are we hiding free energy from the public? That's what I want them to talk about. Hopefully Nancy Mace sees my analogy about UFOs, because all Nancy Mace has to say is, how is this thing floating in the sky? How is this floating? Where's the energy coming from? I want to hear her say that to one of these whistleblowers. And then to go, oh, well, it must be pulling energy from the environment all around it. Because these physicists and engineers in the DIRDs, the Defense Intelligence Reference Documents, they all know the answer is the ether all around them. Like all of them know this. Okay. So let's start with first. Okay, so this is from one of the papers that we're gonna glance at here. We're not gonna read the whole thing, but when I started looking up, actually when I Googled negative mass propulsion, and that was the literal name of the paper, a different paper came up that I ended up reading. Now this other paper was written by Geoffrey Landis. So this is by Landis, and I could tell right away this guy knows exactly what he's talking about, because he mentioned the idea of masses. Negative mass is what we need from a physics perspective in order to produce a warp drive, because it produces an unlimited acceleration. The positive mass is attracted to the negative mass, but the negative mass is repelled. So it creates this situation where you've just got this thing where it's chasing it. So that's a warp drive. That's what we're seeing the orbs do. We know they're manipulating negative energy in front of them because we see the cold, dark lines in front of them. They're pulling energy out of that environment. They're squeezing the 0 point energy fluctuations away. That's what they're doing in that video. So in his paper, I get to this part and I'm like, wow, he is describing a wormhole. He's just not saying a wormhole, but he's describing it. So this is what Landis had to say. What happens is that as the radial coordinates comes increasingly close to r equals 0, the energy density of the electric field outside of that radius becomes larger, and hence the mass interior to that radius is smaller by an amount equal to the square of the electric potential. Oh, wow. Thank you for that donation. Justin, wow, huge donation. At the risk of getting hate, I have to ask, if it's hard to monetize over Unity systems, why not work with Greer's team instead of a typical rollout? Because the people I'm working with don't want to do it. It's not really all up to me. I'm still a novice when it comes, especially the engineering side. I'd say I understand the physics more, but the engineering aspect is, it's pretty complicated. They're two different fields for sure, for a reason. But what Greer's trying to do is he's trying to make some kind of lab and prove it and live stream it. I don't believe in all that. I don't think we have to do all that. Truthfully, I'm of the mindset where this is coming out no matter what in the next 5 or 10 years. It's just a matter of how quickly it comes out at this point. That's really all it comes down to. And I'm on the forefront of it. Like, I'm in front of everybody and I'm pushing it directly to people. I'm telling you, I know it's real. I know it's going to be proven to be real in a few years. So what's the point? What's the rush? Especially if you also know that this is the end of the world as well. I'm not trying to hurry up the end of the world. So I'm just going to wake up all the early adopters, and then all the early adopters can benefit from knowing the types of technology that they should invest in, the stuff that's going to be obsolete, et cetera, et cetera. But good question. And it's cool. I believe that if you want to do like the open source live stream, everything, good luck with that. People have already done all that. As we saw from the Sabrine Hossenfelder video yesterday, she was debunking the Holcomb system without ever seeing it, asking questions, taking the arguments that they make out of context. And she has like 1.5 million subscribers on YouTube. It doesn't matter if your device works. It doesn't matter if you live stream it. It doesn't matter what you do. People will say it cannot work. So the issue is a matter of brainwashing and waking people up, which means that it's inevitable. It's just a matter of how quickly people are going to wake up. Because again, everybody can find all the evidence that I've got out here. So this one by Landis right here. So what it's saying is, as the radius, the distance between the objects comes close, the energy density is increasing. And in fact, it increases exponentially because of Coulomb's law, or Coulomb's force. And hence the mass in the interior is being reduced. So you're having mass reduction in the center. And then at a certain distance, the time and radial components of gravity swap from greater to unity to less than unity, and the gravity reverses to that of negative mass. I mean, this is exactly what we're seeing. Remember, mass and energy are interchangeable. So whenever you see the word mass, you can change it with energy. So the gravity reverses to that of negative energy. I mean, he's literally describing the videos. The orb, that's why the orbs are converging. Like, this is absolute proof. The videos are real. Just looking at the video right here, once you understand negative energy, you're seeing it right there. In fact, one thing I'm going to point out here that I've never mentioned, you guys are on live stream right now. You have the first insight into this. Somebody pointed this out. I think it was, I forgot his name. Wheeze, W-E-Z something. This is not an explosion. This can't be the VFX that they claim it is. Why? Look very closely, guys. Look frame by frame. Okay, this is the first frame. Okay, can it stop? This is the first frame. See how small it is? Next frame. Look how big it is. Now, the frame after this is the one that's interesting. So it went from small to big, and it got smaller. It's actually collapsing. We're actually watching it collapse. It's expanding and then shrinking again. Explosions don't do this. This can't be an explosion effect. If this was an explosion effect, it would burst out everywhere. In fact, the VFX they claim was used actually does burst out everywhere. It's a completely different type of event. This is absolute proof there's no stock VFX in this. And it's absolute proof the people that push the stock VFX are disinformation, literal disinformation. Not the haha disinformation, like literally pushed a completely fake debunk. Once again, small, big, small again, and then it's gone. So within, I believe this happens within like 0.2 seconds. It opens and it closes in 4 frames at 24 frames per second, or whatever it was, 30 frames per second. Yeah, it's a huge catch. For the people that say this was debunked by some stock video game effect, you say that stock video game was an explosion. This is a literal absorption of energy. This is an actual wormhole opening and closing. And you can literally see how fast it happens. 4 frames. So this is happening extremely quickly, but it makes sense. Why does it need to take a long time? It's not like it's going to be in the movies. In the movies or whatever, it's this thing opens up and then you walk through it and then it just closes down behind you after a certain period of time. It just needs to be open for a fraction of a second. Just a split second is all it needs to be open for. Okay. Okay, so that paper that I shared was one of the papers that I found. I'll go ahead and just pull it up for a second. And I found it on NASA's website. Found on NASA's website, chat. And you're going to notice as well, part of the reason why I'm so confident that I'm going to end up being one of the more predominant physicists is that there's not that many people that you have to learn. It's a matter of finding the right people in history that understood this. And you'll see me mention their names over and over and over again. People like Dirac, Casimir, etc. Herman Bondi as well. So Herman Bondi, I guess, was first looking into negative mass related to Einstein's general relativity. And he gets mentioned in the DIRD as well by Winterberg. So again, the big thing about here was just the matter of what direction it would work, because it's not quite like charges where it's just attraction or repulsion. It's like they actually, if you have two opposite, like they chase one another, which is a weird interaction. And then also you could pull that energy out, because it's not even that it takes energy to pull off. It's that when you pull the energy out, you're getting energy by definition. Here he mentions the Casimir effect as well. So actually, I'm going to read this out to you guys. Okay, I'm going to read this paragraph. Now, keep in mind, I hadn't read this before yesterday. And nobody reads these papers. The mass of the vacuum is, by definition, 0. In the quantum mechanical vacuum, however, while the time average of energy density is 0, the instantaneous value of energy will fluctuate as pairs of virtual particles that appear and disappear. Since empty space consists of the true vacuum plus these transient virtual particles, if virtual particles have positive mass, bare empty space must have negative mass density. This is huge, guys. What did he just say right there? He said that if everything equalizes to 0, if everything is in a balance at 0, then we would not expect to see positive mass anywhere. But we see positive mass, us, everything around us, and we also see these virtual particles just jumping into existence. So for this to be the case, then there must be a negative energy that's out there, an opposite of that. A reservoir of that energy must be out there, and it must be negative in state because we don't see it. We don't feel its effects. One of the ways of manifesting this negative energy is in the Casimir vacuum. So what people realized was that Casimir effect is a negative energy state. Now, this is huge, especially if you're new here. Pay attention. This proves negative energy is not an exotic substance. Negative energy is an effect. And in this case, when we put two plates close together, very, very, very close together, two metal plates, they come together. And they do that because you're pushing out certain wavelengths of 0 point energy no longer fit between the plates. So all this energy on the outside is pushing the plates together just naturally. And they looked at that and they went, oh, wow, we can actually interact with this energy. The best way to do so is on the smallest scales possible because the energy is at the smallest scales possible. So we wanted something that's very, very, very small to interact. Plus, the Casimir effect gets exponentially more powerful the closer the plates get to one another. So you want the plates to be super, super, super close. The smaller the scale, the better, the more powerful the effect. In a Casimir cavity, conductive plates bound a region of the vacuum. That boundary condition on the plates excludes some of the electromagnetic modes, that's the wavelengths, of the virtual photons present in the vacuum. And hence, the vacuum between the plates is of a lower energy density. This manifests in the form of the attraction between the two plates. As the higher energy true vacuum outside presses against the negative energy density vacuum, hence the Casimir effect. Casimir vacuum was proposed by Morris, Thorne, and Utzsever as something that could serve as the negative energy to stabilize a wormhole throat. Although later researchers showed that if any hole in the negative energy required an object to reverse the wormhole, would destroy the wormhole. Okay, I didn't understand that sentence. Anyway, a similar effect means that the vacuum surrounding the black hole, a Hartle-Hawking vacuum, is also of negative energy density. That's really interesting to think about. I don't know what that means exactly in terms of what the black hole is. Can a black hole just be a negative energy density zone? Anyway. Something that Sherry asked me on the Investigate Earth is that what is dark energy then? Dark energy is negative energy. The current model of the early universe suggests that the initial era incorporated cosmological inflation, a period of time in which the size of the universe inflated much greater than the speed of light. This inflation inherently implies negative energy density. Negative energy is what you need for that to happen. So it's like, there we go. Then he does the math, etc. This is the part where I talked about the R0, where he basically just explains how to do a wormhole right there. Although Einstein rejected it, matter of negative mass is not disallowed by the general theory of relativity. Negative mass doesn't fall upwards, but in other ways, its properties would be extremely strange. So negative mass isn't a true opposite. It works different than just being the opposite of normal mass. And really what we're talking about is negative energy. Negative energy. Since the inertial of negative mass subtracts from that of positive mass, a collection of negative and positive mass could have an arbitrarily low or even zero inertia. Thus, it could accelerate to arbitrary velocity with little or no expenditure of energy. So this is also weird. If you create a state where there's literally no energy, no mass, then you can just give it a slight push and your object can approach the speed of light. Despite the odd properties, some theoretical objects with properties of negative mass are now being accepted in mainstream theoretical physics, although it's not a matter as we know it. Whether conventional matter of negative mass could exist in its bulk form is still a question. And so, yes, can you just produce a bulk of negative mass? Maybe not. But we can produce negative energy states. And so when I talk about what's the laser doing, a negative energy laser, your negative energy laser will be pushing a path. You're pushing a path through an area and you're opening it up because you're pushing out the wavelengths. Remember, you want to figure out what is the root cause. What's the root cause of the plates coming together? We've squeezed out certain wavelengths are too long. They can't fit in there anymore. So what do we want to do with our wavelengths of electromagnetic energy, known as a laser that we're emitting? We want to push out the other wavelengths. Sorry, you can't come in here. Area's taken. Choo-choo, coming through. Area's taken. So that's what a negative energy laser is potentially doing. Now, in his quotes here, he's got... Look, I always love to read the references now because I'm learning who these people are. Matt Visser, famous physicist. Bondi, he was talking about negative mass and general relativity, 1957, first time that we said that, Einstein's general relativity does not exclude negative mass, negative energy. Robert Forward, guys, negative matter propulsion. Why does Robert Forward's name sound familiar? Because in 1984, Robert Forward showed that the Casimir effect can charge a battery. We can get actual work out of the Casimir effect. And we just have to break through these brainwashed physicists that say you can't get energy from the vacuum. Yes, you can. It's been proven since 1984. There's no debate over it. And this is why, how can Ashton become a top physicist? Because apparently most physicists are retards. Apparently they don't read scientific papers. So all you really have to do is read the scientific papers. Then Landis gets referenced, and then Morris and Thorne get referenced as well with wormholes. I would argue that Eric Davis is probably the world's leading expert on wormholes. And people probably don't realize it just because he only works in black projects as opposed to being like an influencer or whatever. But if he was a mainstream physicist, he would be more well-known than Susskind and Maldacena and Morris and Thorne. Everybody would just be talking about Eric Davis. In fact, let's watch a quick Eric Davis clip now before we go to our next thing. I don't think I've even watched this full one myself. What did I call it? Shit. One sec, chat. Crap. Let me pull up something else while I'm looking for this. Hold on. Okay, so the next paper, while I'm looking for that, you guys can read the abstract. Actually, I want to pull up Winterberg's Wikipedia. They haven't gotten to Winterberg's Wikipedia yet, so they haven't ruined it yet. God, hopefully I have this. You know what? I might not have saved it. No, I saved it. Oh, here it is. Let me see. Okay, I got it. Here we go. Okay, here's the clip, and then we'll come back to that. I have so many videos now that I've got to actually categorize them. It's actually crazy how many. I can make little documentaries with all the little clips and stuff I have. It's pretty sweet.
Rick Davis from Earth Tech, right? That's
Institute for Advanced Studies at Austin.
Oh, okay.
This sounds like Tim Ventura. Does anyone know? Do you think this is Tim Ventura? JK Philly fan, DM me this link, JK. Sounds like Tim Ventura is interviewing him.
Which is, you could say both or one.
Well, can you tell me a little bit about what you're presenting about this year?
Well, actually, I'm presenting 3 papers, and 2 papers as a first author and 1 paper as a co-author. The first of my 2 papers is first author. One of them is I'm reviewing experimental concepts for studying ways to extract energy from the quantum vacuum. And it's basically a summary of some experimental concepts that we've been exploring and we're going to be doing in the laboratory to see if we can extract energy from the zero-point fluctuation. We're also putting a little background history on the zero-point fluctuation, what it is physically, its numerical magnitudes and consequences if we can extract such energy for applications in commercial spaceflight, commercial power systems, and so forth. The other paper I'm authoring is on a review of laboratory concepts for extracting negative energy, or generating negative energy in the laboratory that would be used for generating FTL space-times, and like traversable wormholes or Alcubierre warp drive or Krasner.
Yahtzee. So you guys see why Eric Davis is rising up the list for me rapidly. Also, this is exactly what I want my warp drive and wormhole physicist to look like. This is exactly what I want my guy to look like. He just exudes warp drive wormhole credibility when you look at him. This is a dude who's definitely been working in some black projects. He's definitely seen some stuff nobody knows about. Let me
Talk to warp drives or whatever. The idea.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want him to look like. Perfect. Free energy mustache. Yeah, I mean, perfect.
is to look at the definition of negative energy so that people who are not specialists in general relativity can understand what it really means. The term is misapplied and misused so much that everybody gets confused and don't know what they're talking about usually. So I'm going to clear that up by describing what negative energy is, give its physical definition, and then examine the background of the kinds of effects in quantum theory where negative energy is known to be generated. And then I'm going to look at some selected concepts that have been developed that could hopefully produce negative energy in the laboratory by the way of advanced quantum optics techniques. The other paper is a paper joint.
What did he say right there at the end? I think he said some type of optical techniques. What was it? How is he producing it? The fact this was like 20, 30 years ago, by the way, guys.
That could hopefully produce negative energy in the laboratory by the way of advanced quantum optics techniques. The other paper is a paper
something quantum optic techniques or something like that.
Joint with Harold White from NASA Johnson Space Center. He's doing this as a private citizen and not as a NASA employee.
You just hear him mention Harold Sonny White. He just said he was working with Harold Sonny White. We know after this, Harold Sonny White seems to have been pushed out after he confirmed an anomalous thrust from the EM drive. Literally, the EM drive, guys, the one that they discredited, they said there was impossible drive that they claimed didn't work because they just said like the temperature could account for it or something like that. Harold Sonny White was the guy that tested it for NASA, that confirmed that it was real. And then he was also the guy that had been working on warp drive and for NASA and bending space-time. And it worked. We saw the results. You can see the interference or the shift in the light beams.
As part of his graduate thesis work for his PhD in general relativity. It's on examining Alcubierre's warp drive in higher dimensional space-times using deep-brain theory. And we show that in deep-brain theory, you can actually eliminate the negative energy requirement and replace it with the positive energy and a negative pressure.
Well, this is a real breakthrough paper, right? This is the
positive energy and negative pressure. Negative pressure, chat. Negative pressure, like with our Casimir effect. He's saying that with positive energy and the Casimir effect, you can produce a warp drive or a wormhole. And what is he talking about? We know what he's talking about now. How much you want to bet Eric Davis was involved in making these orbs? Why do I have this weird feeling that like Eric Davis and Sal Paez like work together on making these orbs and now they've got some weird shit where like they can't talk about it? It just kind of has that weird feeling. This movie, if it turns out these two guys made these orbs, this movie is going to be amazing when it gets made. The MH370 movie.
at least from what I've seen, this is the first time we've ever seen an applied physics approach to string of brain theory.
Right.
So that's a real hallmark achievement.
Right, and the idea is we believe that the Alcubierre metric, or any kind of warp metric, really represents a velocity boost that goes off the brain that we live on into the higher dimensional space, and the equation of state of matter or energy that you need to affect that physical thing would give you requirement for positive energy and negative pressure, so not any negative exotic matter at all is required. The equation of state looks like the dark energy equation of state in the universe. And so Harold had proposed
Harold, he's talking about Hal Puthoff right there.
A first order
or actually it could be Sonny White as well.
Rough sketch lab experiment that we could do using lasers in order to try to see if we can test this theory.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, he was talking about Sonny White. How do I know? I probably just have the video. Hold on. Shit. Damn, gotta work on my naming convention. So anyway, he's talking about negative energy there and how they can produce negative energy. And that was 20 something years ago. He explained it's not an exotic substance either. Oh, there it is. I got it. Yeah, I got to rename this. Dr. Harold Sonny White. That was why I couldn't find it. Don't worry. I realized I just have all the clips. I can just go to the clips nowadays. I have all the clips. That's why I saved them.
Aircraft. So I think I got the bug at a very early age to want to get into.
That's Harold Sonny White right there. You're staring at him. And this is his whole thing talking about warp drives. We actually went through his slides. I have the slides as well. And he talks literally about the experiment that he was just referenced by Eric Davis. Eric Davis was mentioning this laser experiment. Well, you want to see the bending of the light. Because we're trying to create this Alcubierre warp metric. We're trying to either create negative energy or positive energy. So if I scroll through, so then these are the results where you're seeing the peaks and the valleys here on the bottom right as well, where they tested it. I think he's got one where you can see the shift of the pattern. And one thing I think is just really interesting is that how similar the orbs are to these designs. These designs here, they have this structure around the craft, but he talks about in this video that the connector between that structure would have been problematic. You actually need the things that's teleporting the object to be free floating, not connected to the craft itself. Actually, you might not need that, but certainly how we have it set up now. Now, let me see. Where's the slides? Oh, so here's the apparatus.
Electrostatic fins. It's a non-contact way to input a force into the torsion pendulum. The advantage.
So in addition to that, they had to elevate the room as well so that it's like elevated off the ground, not being impacted by any small fluctuations. Where's the results? I wonder if this would count as a negative energy laser. Oh, here's the EM drive in the bottom right. I think he skipped this. So yeah, net measured thrust, 55.4 micronewtons, because he realizes that if we can manipulate energy this way, then the EM drive is possible, which you see here on this image right here as well. So they seem to come after him after this and try to discredit him because they can't admit that the EM drive works. Because if they admit the EM drive works, then people are going to realize negative energy is real. All this stuff's real. We can manipulate 0 point energy. Free energy becomes real right away. So I guess he doesn't have the slides on here. Sorry, guys. There was one of the slides that he had for his warp drive thing where he shows you he actually shows the laser pattern, and you can see this bending in the laser pattern. It's pretty cool. Okay, so Winterberg. Let's read a little bit about his Wikipedia before it gets wiped out. German-American theoretical physicist, general relativity, Planck scale physics, nuclear fusion, and plasmas. Well, good sir, you have my attention. Now, when I see Planck scale physics, nuclear fusion, and plasmas all together, I immediately go, okay, this guy knows something. This guy knows something. Planck scale physics is exactly what we need with the microchips to interact with the 0 point energy. Plasmas, we realized, are a way to manipulate electrical currents and create a dipole without, basically by cheating. Plasmas are basically cheating. And nuclear fusion as well is transmutation and conjuring or manifesting of elements as well. So this is a guy who definitely understands that we can interact with the vacuum, no doubt. In 1955, he got his PhD from the Max Planck Institute as a student of Werner Heisenberg, one of the main pioneers of quantum mechanics. And he was a principal scientist in the Nazi nuclear programs during the World War II. So basically, he got taught by the Nazis, chat. He basically got taught by the Nazis. So where my Project Paperclippers at in the chat? Project Paperclip, probably legit, chat. Probably legit. Oh yeah, there we go. I'm just literally next sentence. 1959, Winterberg was brought to the United States as part of Operation Paperclip. Holy shit. Holy shit. I did not realize that he was actually part of Project Paperclip himself. Okay. Holy shit, chat. What? My whole world is spinning. I just read a whole paper about this guy, and he nails every single aspect of the 0 point energy. Holy shit, the Nazis figured it out. The Nazis had it figured out. We stole all their scientists. And then we had it figured out. Wow. This is crazy. 15 at the end of the war. Wait. So he was okay. So he was a student when the war ended, and then they took him. Oh, even afterwards. So we just found out that he knew his shit. So at least he wasn't a Nazi himself. Okay. So he's known for his works in nuclear fusion and plasma physics. Edward Teller had been quoted as saying that perhaps not received the attention he deserves for his work on fusion. Are you guys ready for this? This is almost more exciting than the paper itself, honestly. We Are the Change, I think, or was it Lumina? I don't know. One of our 2 Discord members found out that Winterberg tried to get his fusion research declassified by the DOE, and they rejected him. Why would he want to get his fusion research declassified? Probably because he had a major breakthrough and he wanted to get credit. That's why he wanted it declassified. Because he's looking out at the world and he's going, the world has no idea that we figured out cold fusion through plasmas and Bose-Einstein condensates. That's the only reason. And the DOE, of course, says hell no. Like, now I totally understand why the DOE has more power than the president. Because the Department of Energy is the one pulling all the strings. They've got, it's all underneath them. The cold fusion, the plasma, all this stuff's underneath them. It just so happens it also produces anti-gravity and warp drives and wormholes. But at the end of the day, it's an infinite energy source. He's an elected member of the Paris-based International Academy of Astronautics, in which he sat on the Committee of Interstellar Space Exploration. In 1954, he made the first proposal to test general relativity with atomic clocks in Earth satellites. Wait, what? He's the reason why we know time dilation is real? What? This is the experiment for time dilation. We put atomic clocks on airplanes to maybe on Earth satellites, maybe not. Maybe that's not the same one. But still. Okay. His thermonuclear microexplosion ignition concept was adopted at British Interspace. Yeah, I don't know about all that. Blowing stuff up is lame. Oh, his research in the 21st century has been on Planck ether hypothesis. He talks about this in the paper. When I read this in the paper, this is when I started getting onto the Twitter going, okay, I'm going to be a major scientist, major physicist. Like, bro. What? Bruh. Planck ether hypothesis? He's talking about the 0-point energy field. He's talking about the field of energy all around. He knows it's there because of his research in plasma physics on black projects and being a Nazi scientist. Okay, I probably shouldn't say that. He's probably not technically a Nazi scientist. You get the point, though. A theory that claims to explain both quantum mechanics and the theory of relativity as an asymptomatic, symptotic low energy approximations, and gives a spectrum of particles greatly resembling the standard model. So basically he's saying, and I actually, in his paper, he explains this. He says in the paper and explains mathematically that this idea of this ether perfectly explains quantum mechanics and why these effects we see at the macro scale level happen. Shows that it answers all the equations, add up to being able to combine like Schrodinger's equations on the quantum mechanics scale with the stuff that we see in general relativity. This is why I said unification's already been figured out. Multiple people have already figured out unification. For some reason, I can't say that word, but it's fine. Einstein's gravitational and Maxwell's electromagnetic equations are unified by the symmetric and asymmetric wave mode of a vortex sponge. Dirac spinors result from gravitationally interacting bound positive and negative mass vortices, which explains why the mass of an electron is so much smaller than the Planck mass. So what he's saying is that we've got this energy, sea of energy, and you've got your positive mass vortexing, and you've got your negative mass vortexing, and they're creating this equilibrium. What we see is the energy all around us. It seems homogeneous, but it actually can be manipulated. And so he's saying there's this spinning that's interacting, and this spinning is what's causing electromagnetic field, waves, phenomenon, gravity as well. So he's literally combining electromagnetism and gravity. Now, this is very, very, very similar to the idea of Kaluza-Klein. These are all compatible theories. There's an extra dimension of this energy. And he's just taking it a step further where he's saying, okay, this is how this vortex is interacting with it from the quantum mechanical level, because it's all about spin. And at the end of the day, they're all right. They're just building on each other's theories, which is why, unfortunately, no one gets to have the God particle named after them. Except for 4 orbs. It's going to be the 4 orbs particle. Sorry, guys. Screw you. It's called the 4 orbs particle, the unification particle. 4 orbs. That's what it's going to be called. And it's been figured out for a long time. The public doesn't realize it, but defense contractors already know. The theory proposes that the only free parameters in the fundamental equations are Planck length, Planck mass, and Planck time. Whatever. And all these other words is like stuff to do with string theory and how many dimensions there are. End of the day, you don't need to understand 11 dimensions to understand physics. You don't need to understand any of that shit. You just need to know space is not empty. There's a sea and ocean of energy, and all points in space and time are actually connected. We just don't perceive it. If you understand those 3 things, you understand physics more than like 95% of physicists. Okay. Oh, fusion. I kind of want to know a little bit about his fusion stuff. I think I read some of this earlier. He has a fusion reactor, magnetic compression reaction chamber, which was later developed at the University of Alabama at Huntsville's Propulsion Research Center. That's very interesting. Wow. Does sound like some of his stuff sounds very, very similar to what would be required for a plasma orb. Does he love toroids? Probably. Oh, okay. Here we go. Beam weapons. According to Dennis King, Winterberg shared his ideas on beam weapons with the U.S. Air Force, and he speculated on the subject in publications for Fusion Energy Foundation. They published a book of Winterberg describing the design of a hydrogen bomb with the hope of getting research in inertial confinement fusion declassified. What? That's what he was trying to get declassified? Inertial confinement fusion declassified? Yeah, okay. So, guys, when they talk about national security, here it is right here. There it is right there. That's national security. Aliens are not national security. Inertial confined plasma, where we can just create a plasma orb, that's the national security. He also contributed articles to interviews in the FEF magazine, Fusion, and Successor magazine. Yeah, they haven't attacked his paper at all, or his Wikipedia page at all. They probably haven't figured out about this guy yet. He was encouraging efforts to achieve economically feasible fusion energy and presenting his ideas for what direction the effort should take. So this guy 100% knows. Yeah, inertial confinement fusion. Wow. I would love to show this guy the orbs. I guarantee you show this man the orb videos and he's going, yeah, those are real. You show Winterberg this, you show him, show Winterberg this clip, I guarantee you he's going, oh yeah, that's 100% real. That can't be faked. He's like, that can't be faked. He'll be like, that's negative energy. That's a wormhole. He'll be like, those orbs are extremely powerfully charged objects. Okay. I think that's about it. Whoa, he got in beefs with Einstein? No. Well, whatever. We'll worry about the drama another time. I imagine that this guy was in the know and he knew that we have technology and that it disproves part of some of the physics that we've been led to believe out there. That's what I'm guessing. Okay, where's his paper? So Hal Puthoff finds him. Smart women in the chat. Yeah, I've got the best women in the chat, guys. We've got the best community, best women in the chat, best people in the chat, best scientists, pretty much. Okay. Hal Puthoff finds him and gets him to write this paper. Negative mass propulsion. Now, when I first read this, I thought this was going to be about how to make a warp drive. But it's really all just about what is negative energy and his unification theory for negative energy. It is easy to prove there are negative masses all around us, albeit hidden behind positive masses. So he takes this approach where the negative mass is being confined by the positive masses. But his idea is still pretty much the same as everybody else's idea of this ether of energy that's all out there. He just looks at it a little bit differently. He also mentions that it might be able to explain dark matter as well. The part that I don't understand is where he starts talking about the moon potentially being some type of well of energy or matter. I wonder if what he's thinking is that we could get to the center of it and we might be able to tap into the energy there. So the first thing he describes, again, this weird motion of one positive and one negative particle or particle of energy or amount of mass, one negative mass, one positive mass. Again, where you see this effect where it chases it. And this is the first concept for how a warp drive would work. You would be in the middle of this, and then you're riding the wave, basically, of the bending of space-time. So Bondi, again, 1957, we just learned, was the person to first introduce negative masses into general relativity. And Winterberg goes through all the equations so that nobody can debunk him. So he shows all the math is legit. So gravity potentially is not linear. I think he means that gravity can work both ways. It doesn't necessarily just have to be one direction, which is important because Einstein believed that gravity was absolute, but that's really just a classical view. Like we can reverse gravity as well. And that's where we would need our negative energy or negative pressure. Oh, wow. Thank you, Pauliep. Thank you very much. Do you think our enemies, leaders don't mess with us because they know about a certain zap? Absolutely. Why do you think that we don't have any proxy wars against the United States? We are the ones who perpetuate the proxy wars because we basically just have an iron grip on the planet. And at any moment, anybody we don't like, we can just teleport them to the moon or the center of the sun. GG no re. Okay. Okay, this is the part I really want to get to is the Zitribuagong. There is no fundamental physical principle standing in the way which forbids the existence of negative masses. If this is true, where are these negative masses? The recently noticed large bubbles or voids observed in intergalactic space could possibly be explained by a repulsive force of negative masses assumed to occupy the voids, but alternate, less exotic explanations have been offered as well. However, there's at least one fundamental phenomenon which strongly speaks for the existence of negative masses. It is the spin of fermions, like the spin of an electron. Fermions are described by Dirac's relativistic wave equation. This equation has both positive and negative components because of the mass-energy relation. It therefore must have negative mass components. According to Schrödinger, it is these negative mass components which lead to the phenomenon of the spin. Since the overall mass of the electron is positive, The occurrence of negative masses in the Dirac equation must mean that the electron in a mass pole with a superimposed mass dipole. Again, a dipole is just a positive and negative masses. So the way I understand this is, if you imagine that our boat is sitting on top of this ocean of energy, part of it's negative and part of it's positive. Some's a little above the water at sea level and some's a little bit below sea level. The spin is definitely not an intrinsic rotational motion of finite-sized particle, as older models had suggested it to be. The original model by these guys here cannot possibly be correct because it requires superluminal rotational velocities for an electron with a classical radius. Where's the part I wanted? The velocity of light result was first obtained by Bright, according to what Dirac's equations predict the local energy velocity equal to the velocity of light. That's actually not what I wanted. Where's the part about this rotation? The result derived from the simple pole-dipole model is in a beautiful agreement with Schrodinger's analysis of the Dirac equation, in which the luminal rotational motion emerges as a fluctuation of the electron coordinate called by Schrodinger Zitterbewegung. What they're saying is that all these particles, that this negative energy state of the ocean is constantly vibrating. So we've got this energy out there, but it's constantly moving a little bit. Little bit of jitter going on it, and basically he shows how to do the math there. So the Planck ether hypothesis, actually, we therefore see that there are huge amounts of negative masses bound to the positive masses in the Dirac spinors. It shows that it cannot be a simple matter to free the negative masses from the positive masses, and explains why the masses of elementary particles are so much smaller than the Planck mass. So he's saying that there's this huge amount of negative energy, negative mass that's out there. The Planck ether hypothesis basically brings back the ether. And he says that it's all about three concepts: the Planck length, the Planck mass, and the Planck time. If you don't know what a fermion is, a fermion just states that two electrons cannot be at the exact same point. They can't be the same point. They must be separated. This is what makes it so my hand doesn't go through any object. The Planck ether conjecture is the assumption that the vacuum of space is densely filled with an equal number of positive and negative Planck mass particles, each with a Planck length volume on the average of occupied by one Planck mass, with one Planck mass particles interacting with each other by the Planck force over the Planck length, and with Planck mass particles of equal sign repelling those of opposite sign and attracting each other. The particular choice made for the sign of the Planck force is the only one that keeps the Planck ether stable. While Newton's action-reaction remains valid for the interaction of the equal Planck mass particles, it is violated for the interaction of a positive with a negative Planck mass particle. So when they both are the same state, then Newton's laws of action and reaction, each force has an equal and opposite, is true. But when you have a positive and a negative mass particle interact, now we don't have equal and opposite anymore. Now we get the reverse mass situation where we see these unusual effects. It's acting the opposite of what we would expect. Yeah, and so it's doing something weird there, even though the total linear momentum of the mass Planck is still conserved. Why is it still conserved? Because when you add the numbers up, the math still works out correctly. It doesn't violate the math. It is the local violation of Newton's action-reaction which leads to quantum mechanics at the most fundamental level, as can be seen of the following. So then he explains it here, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Remember, he was actually taught by Heisenberg. Okay, let's see here. So in the Planck ether hypothesis, all particles, except for the Planck mass particles, are quasi-particles of the Planck ether. like the phonons, rotons, excitons, etc., of condensed matter physics. And by the wave structure of the Planck ether are Lorentz invariant. In forming quantized vortices, the Planck ether also has vortex waves, simulating Maxwell's and Einstein's electromagnetic and gravitational waves. So he's saying the ether itself is producing gravity. The ether is producing gravity. You put a big ball on top of the ocean, it's going to sink a little bit. It's going to cause exactly what we imagine as gravity. Dirac spinors are also made possible by the negative masses of the Planck ether. I love that he calls it ether, and I love that he spells it A-E-T-H-E-R. Oh, this was the part that I wanted here. The Zitribuc. I think this is the Zitribuc. Quantum mechanics predicts for each harmonic oscillator. Harmonic oscillator is just something moving back and forth. The 0-point energy is equal to this, which has to be multiplied by the volume element in frequency space to obtain 0-point energy spectrum. Okay. And then right here at the end, this part where he says, this means that special relativity is a consequence of quantum mechanics. So what is he saying right there? When he says this, he's saying this unifies quantum mechanics and general relativity and relativity, leading to the 0-point vacuum energy, and can be interpreted by saying that the 0-point vacuum energy generates the Minkowski spacetime. So what he's saying is that we don't need to throw away relativity. 0-point energy causes the effects of relativity on the mass on the large scale. And so another way to say this is he's saying that the ether, this ether of energy, solves all the problems we have with mainstream physics right now. Solves all the problems. Do you think Bob Lazar was telling the truth? Sounds pretty similar. I don't know all of his physics concepts. I do think that most of what Bob Lazar said was what he believes to be the truth. Yes. If you want more, listen to the Chad and Sherry Investigate Earth podcast. They actually asked me this very question tonight. So if you want more, check out that podcast. Probably be dropping in the morning. Yeah, part of it is when you speak something into existence. You want to be a leading physicist, just going to be a leading physicist. Plus, I love how angry it'll make the skeptics and the debunkers as well if I were to become a leading physicist. Because, man, it gets really hard to refute the MH370 videos are real because I'm never untying them from this science. Science ends up being real, which it's going to be. I'm not hearing any more bullshit about how the videos aren't real. There was no... Eric Davis didn't make the MH370 videos. He's not the hoaxer of the videos. Nobody hoaxed the videos. There's no PhD scientists that are VFX experts that are major hoaxers that made those videos. No chance. Okay. I think there was one more part that I wanted to read. And so most of his paper is deep into the math, although I like that when there's one other thing about scientific papers. I like when they speak in a way where you can actually understand what they're talking about. This one's probably a medium for me where he uses a lot of terms, but he doesn't really give a lot of explanations for the layman. Some people do a really good job of like letting like normal people understand the scientific papers. So if you read one and you're like, I'm a little lost in this, don't lose all hope. The first one we read tonight by Landis was, in my opinion, easier to understand and easier to read. But you can also just like Google some of these terms like Minkowski spacetime if you want. Minkowski spacetime is basically like mainstream general relativity version of outer space. Oh, and then one last one here. Negative mass. Where's the thing? Negative mass interpretation of the Ehrenhoff-Bohm effect. Holy shit, chat. Holy shit. Why is this huge? If you've been listening to me, guys, for any period of time, you know I harp on the Ehrenhoff-Bohm effect a lot. Why? Because in the Ehrenhoff-Bohm effect, they shoot electrons, photons, whatever, through double slits, and there's a solenoid on the back, which should be a region that has no electromagnetic potentials outside of the solenoid. So it's all confined within the solenoid. But when the photons move past the solenoid, they get bent. The phase changes. That can only happen if there's interaction. What that means, the Aharonov-Bohm effect says there must be a medium there. There must be a medium. There are potentials outside of the solenoid in the ether that are being impacted, even with no electromagnetic interference. We're seeing the scalar potential or the magnetic vector potentials outside of the solenoid. And this is huge. We'll probably just skip to the bottom part. So he goes into all the math and he basically unifies it with Schrodinger and quantum mechanics as well. I think the number of people that could even debunk this paper is probably like only in the dozens on the entire planet. Just people just don't know that much about it. So here we go. In the hydrodynamic interpretation suggested by Planck ether hypothesis, so when he says hydrodynamic, he's saying think of the ether as a fluid. Think of this energy field as a fluid. That's why I call it the ocean of energy. It's literally the best possible example. It's a literal ocean. He's thinking of it as like a Bose-Einstein condensate of this fluid of energy that's out there. The phase shift caused by either the magnetic or gravitational vector potential results from the circular flow of the Planck ether. So he's saying because you have this flow of energy between the ether and our reality, when you attach the solenoid, you're seeing an interference of that. You're interfering with the equilibrium of the medium. And so you're creating these little ripples, and those ripples are causing the phase shift. The principle of equivalence can precisely relate this circular flow to the angular velocity of a rotating platform. Okay. Then he measures it to the Sagnac effect. Now, Sagnac supposedly debunked the ether debunk as well. So you're seeing that there's a certain number of physicists and scientists out there that always knew the ether was real. They always knew it was real. These guys were serious. Like this guy was a serious heavyweight. And he's talking about Sagnac, who debunked the ether being fake and talking about gravitational vector potentials here and the Aharonov-Bohm effect. I almost guarantee that he knew Tom Bearden as well. So you're seeing there's this faction of people on the inside that know all about this stuff. Okay. The Planck ether model can give a simple explanation for the paradox. The Planck ether consists of two superfluid components, one composed of positive mass Planck masses and the other of negative Planck masses. The two components can freely flow through each other, making possible two configurations. One where both components are co-rotating and one where they're counter-rotating. The co-rotating configuration is realized on the rotating platform, where it leads to Sagnac and neutron interference effects. This suggests that the presence of the magnetic vector potential, the two superfluid components are counter-rotating. Outside the coil, where curl A equals 0, the magnetic energy density vanishes, implying that magnitudes of both velocities are exactly the same. Inside the coil, where the A is not equal to 0, there must be a small imbalance in the velocity of the positive over the negative Planck masses to result in the positive energy density. So you're changing the energy density of the medium in the Aharonov-Bohm effect. So this is the part 2 where if you talk about Aharonov-Bohm effect, like nobody can debunk this. There's no other explanation for the Aharonov-Bohm effect other than there must be a medium. There must be a medium. It doesn't require name-dropping fancy scientists. Like literally just think of it until you put nothing there and you're seeing a shift. How is that possible? Because nothing is not nothing. You're manipulating a medium. That's the only interpretation possible. At least in my opinion. I don't know what other interpretation people can come up with. Whoa, the Mo. Holy crap. You guys are going wild today. Thank you, the Mo. I've seen your comments. I've seen your support. I love it. It says, thank you for devoting your time to this mystery and this rabbit hole. Well, shit. Looks like I'm eating nice tonight, chat. I'm eating nice tonight. Cheers to you, the Mo. I'm glad you like this, man. I'm glad you like the content. I'm going to see what other clips I have to share after this. But then it also mentions negative masses in cosmology. And this is the part where he says it can explain that what's happening is that we're reaching a thermodynamic equilibrium. So thermodynamic equilibrium is the same where if you get into the tub, if you're in the bathtub and you're taking a bath and it feels like the temperature's not hot anymore. If somebody else were to come and touch the water, they're going to feel that the water's hot, but the temperature is equalized with your body. That's a thermodynamic equilibrium. So that's what he's saying right here, is that this is all explained because we're in an equilibrium sitting on top of this ocean of energy, and we don't even realize it's there because we're in equilibrium with it all around us. That's the reason why we don't see it, but we know it's there. And it can also explain the vacuum catastrophe as well. One of these papers mentions the vacuum catastrophe, where the reason why it seems like the cosmic microwave background energy is so low, because we're seeing this equilibrium. That's why we're not able to measure what's below the equilibrium through classical means. Yeah, just because we look out there and we only see 5% of the energy doesn't mean that's all there is. Literally, I think it's 5%. We can only see 5% of the mass and energy that's out there. 95% of it's missing. Well, it's here. The 95% is here. The 5% is here. The 95% is here. We're in a literal ocean of energy. Big Pooh says, this is the strangest online community I've ever come across. Usually after a year, there's some crazy breakdown that Keemstar reports. Yeah, this is crazy because it's just real. It's just real. We uncovered, like, the government screwed up. They leaked the most important videos in the history of the world on the internet, and they didn't think anybody was going to find out they were real, and we found out they were real. And now we've dug up all their secrets. We've dug up all their Black Project engineers who've been speaking freely about it for decades. And it's easy to piece the things together once you've seen the answers. Once you've seen the answers in the MH370 video, once you've seen an endothermic negative energy event, then you're like, oh, all these defense intelligence reference documents, all these scientific papers are just like literally explaining all these concepts that we see in those videos. That's not a coincidence. That's not disinformation. Just that's our secrets laid bare. Is that it? Yeah, I'm going to skip this gravitational well of the moon. That does seem interesting, though. I think that what he's saying with the moon is that because the density near the center of the moon is going to be so large, there might be something weird and exotic happening in the center of the moon, because we think the moon is inert. We don't think there's geological activity on the moon. That means we should be able to dig right to the center and we're not going to get cooked in lava or whatever. And if that's true, maybe at these levels where the energy density is so strong, maybe we find some kind of cold fusion or Bose-Einstein condensate there. This actually got me thinking now. I kind of do want to read it now. Yeah, if appreciable amounts of negative matter have accumulated over billions of years in the center of the moon, it is more likely that this matter is not in the form of ultralight matter, perhaps by an order of magnitude lighter than ordinary matter. There are indications that a Swedish research group has found evidence for the existence of an ultra-dense phase of deuterium about more than 100,000 times more dense than water. Holy shit, chat. That's exactly what he's saying. He's saying there might be a Bose-Einstein condensate at the center of the moon. There could be a Bose-Einstein condensate at the center of the moon that's negative in properties. Suppose that the center of the moon, the accumulation of negative matter had led to a form of matter which is 100,000 times lighter than steel, but still has the strength of steel. This would not lead to a negative positive mass, self-chasing mass dipole as envisioned by Forward. but something very important for spaceflight, because it would dramatically reduce the energy requirements to accelerate a spacecraft made from such an ultralight material. Guaranteed, guys. I don't know. It's one of those things where like you just know once you've seen the answers. I think this might be legit. I think this is left-handed materials. When people talk about left-handed materials, I think they're talking about using a substance like this to produce something that's the opposite of mass. So you could potentially use this type of substance and use it as negative mass, which is just condensed negative energy. Wow. And if you could build something out of it, a structure out of it, you could just put that in front of your craft. And now it's like having a carrot on the stick, and you've just got perpetual motion. Wow. This is very interesting. Now I kind of want to know about left-handed materials, guys. In fact, we're going to Google this real quick, or we're going to grok it. Grok it. Let's ask Grok. What is a left-handed material? Let's see what Grok says. Let's see how good Grok is, guys. How much you guys want to bet? You guys think in the chat that I'm right? Left-handed material in the context of physics and material science refers to materials that exhibit properties, in a sense, defy conventional expectations based on our everyday experiences. Negative refractive index metamaterials. These are perhaps the most well-known types of left-handed materials. They have negative refractive index, meaning the light bends in the opposite direction of what we would expect. This occurs when both the electric permittivity and magnetic permeability are negative. Light passes through these materials can result in phenomenon like negative refraction, where light bends the wrong way, or even superlensing, where light can be focused beyond the diffraction limit. Oh, wow. This is how we can make microscopes that can see a virus. Wow. That's what negative refractive index allows us to make microscopes that can see smaller than electron microscope can see. No wonder. So that's why we can't know about that microscope technology. Potential uses include perfect lenses, cloaking devices, and enhanced imaging technologies. Chiral materials. Handedness. What the hell is this? Something about polarized light. Optical activity, where a plane of polarization rotates as the light passes through it. Okay, I don't know what that's all about. Left-handed electromagnetic materials. These are engineered structures where the wave vector, direction of wave propagation, electric field, and magnetic field from the left-handed or counterclockwise system, contrary to the right-handed system. This can result in reverse Doppler effect, reverse Chekhov radiation, and other exotic electromagnetic phenomenon. Okay, I'm interested in left-handed material stuff. Seems pretty close. Let's see if there's anything else in that paper. Okay, there's one more thing I want to show you guys tonight before we close up shop. So that's why he wanted to make a tunnel to the moon, because we could theoretically just cut right through. Okay. One more thing. Okay. Oh, that's not it. One sec. This one. Oh, here it is. You guys are going to love this, chat. Get excited. Back reaction blog spot. Friday, December 7th, 2018. Oh, look, it's Sabine Hassenfelder in the top right. This is Sabine Hassenfelder's blog. No, negative masses have not revolutionized cosmology. A lot of people have asked me to comment on a paper by James Farnes entitled A Unifying Theory of Dark Energy and Dark Matter, Negative Masses and Matter Creation within a Modified ACDM Framework. Now, I have that paper up here somewhere, and I'm just going to read it to you guys. Dark energy and dark matter constitute 95% of the observable universe, yet the physical nature of these two phenomena remains a mystery. Einstein suggested a long-forgotten solution. Gravitationally repulsive negative masses which drive cosmic expansion and cannot coalesce into light-emitting structures. However, contemporary cosmological results are derived upon a reasonable assumption that the universe only contains positive masses. By reconsidering this assumption, I've constructed a toy model which suggests that both the dark phenomenon can be unified into a single negative mass fluid. This indicates that continuously created negative masses can resemble the cosmological constant and can flatten the rotation curves of galaxies. He's saying it explains why galaxies rotate the way they do. The model leads to a cyclic universe. Cyclic universe would be, like I said, with the water cycle. It's a cycle. Energy is coming in and out. With a time variable Hubble parameter, potentially providing compatibility with the current tension that is emerging in cosmological measurements. The proposed cosmological model is therefore able to predict the observed distribution of dark matter in galaxies from first principles. The model makes several testable predictions and seems to have the potential to be considered with observational evidence from distant supernova. So there's a big hint. They're saying, I'm going to have to read this. They're saying that distant supernova are acting differently than we expect. The cosmic microwave background and galaxy clusters. These findings may imply that negative masses are a real and physical aspect of our universe, or alternatively, may imply the existence of a superseding theory that in some limit can be modeled by an effective negative masses. So Sabrina Hassenfelder was poo-pooing on this. And she didn't like it, talks about arguing with people, blah, blah, blah. So I think it was We Are the Change that dug through here. And look at this. This is crazy. Why issue a press release? It creates a public conversation about nothing. I think it's irresponsible, and these people should be chastised and shunned. Do you realize these people are just idiots? We're in a situation where physicists are basically just Redditors now. You shouldn't even talk about this. Talking about this is about, we're talking about nothing. Can you imagine having this view? They're literally trying to explain the stuff that conventional physics literally cannot explain. They had to come up with fake names like dark matter and dark energy because the models break down. Instead of just admitting our models don't work, we invented completely fake terms for stuff that we can't understand. This person is trying to explain it, and the comments are all, why are we wasting time with this? We're too smart for this. This stuff's all stupid. Looks like James responded. Thank you for writing an article about this. However, I don't think these comments are actually related to the findings of the paper, but rather the papers of others. Your disagreement appears to be with the work of Bondi. Bondi, 1957, remember? Both other papers we documented said that Bondi showed that negative energy states do exist, who showed these masses are compatible with general relativity. The comments seem to ignore Bondi's work. So again, what are physicists doing? They don't like negative energy. They just ignore it. Bondi showed that it's perfectly consistent with general relativity. What's their answer? I don't like you. This is kind of how like people don't like Ashton Forbes. So they just poo-poo the stuff that, even though I'm saying the truth, they just don't like it anyway, because it's like, it's feelings over facts. Oh, and this is something I've seen Sabine do a lot of times where she comes off extremely disingenuous. He says a creation term is not a magic fix where you can just explain anything and everything. That's incredibly misleading. It proves very exact and well-defined physical properties. A lot of what these MSM physicists do is they go, you just invented this magical solution. And they say, so we're going to ignore it. No, we're inventing a solution that fits perfectly with the equation. Perfectly, mind you. Not like a little bit off, but like perfectly fits with general relativity equations. Perfectly fits. Explains everything. And the hypocrisy is that you invented fake things, a magic fix. The magic fix was dark energy and dark matter. Those are the magic fixes. That's not how the universe really works. You just made up terms for things that you don't understand. So it's not the people that are trying to propose the unification theories that are coming with magic fixes. It's the mainstream physicists are the ones that came up with the magic fixes. And she does this gaslighting a lot. She did it as well in the debunk video of the Holcomb generator, where she says, it's a perpetual motion machines and those aren't possible. It's like, okay, you're completely missing the point, because anything can be a perpetual motion machine. Like a windmill can be a perpetual motion machine. A solar panel can be a perpetual motion machine. You know, it depends on what your definition is. Coefficient of performance greater than 1 is allowed. It is allowed. The article also currently reads, and this is the guy responding, by the way, the primary reason we use dark matter and dark energy to explain cosmological observations is that they are simple. What? What do you mean it's simple to make something up that you don't understand. It's just magic fairy dust. It's simple. What is dark matter and dark energy? I don't know. Okay, so you just made up something you don't understand as magic fairy dust as your answer. It's simple to understand. We just call it dark energy, dark matter. It's simple. What do you mean you don't understand it? Here you are neglecting the fact that there is no physical explanation for either dark energy or dark matter. My theory provides the first physical explanation for both of these phenomenon in a single unified and intuitive framework. It's certainly not the first. This is the part where a lot of these scientists are way ahead of themselves. Again, it's the 4 orbs particle, chat. 4 orbs particle. Sorry, I was the first 4 orbs particle. But these people don't realize that it's already been discovered many times over, well before 2018. And they're like, oh, we have to have a press release on it because it's this major thing. Yeah, it's already been figured out. Given the lack of evidence for all conventional theories at present, including those which you frequently highlight, I am surprised that you would not see the advantage to a new idea. She's been blogging since 2006? Wow. Highlighting the vacuum instability is also completely wrong. This is a feature of the theory, and this is currently emphasized in the paper. The creation term moderates the production rate of negative mass particles and prevents this from being a catastrophic event. What they're saying here is that if this ether of energy was real, it should annihilate all our positive matter. No, because it's in an equilibrium. It's stuck in a thermodynamic equilibrium. Even the physicists can understand that part. Obviously, not everything's wiped out because we're here. That doesn't mean there's not a negative energy well. It just means that negative energy well isn't overflowing. But that should be a concern, because now you can see from these people that are afraid that this negative energy would have wiped out all the matter. Yes, it can. We can make a weapon out of it because we can engineer it, and then we can burst it open, and yes, then it's going to wipe out everything it touches. Justin, thank you very much. Donated to get a special video made for this chick. There you go. Hey, chick that's hanging out with Justin. Welcome to the party. Justin's a big brain. He's learning about physics and quantum mechanics out here. So, you know, you found yourself a good one. If you're dating or talking to a dude that knows about this science, they're like 50 years ahead of all the other dudes that are out there that are worried about what they're going to bet on sports ball or what have you. The people that are watching this are going to be the ones investing in cold fusion and the legit ones, and they're probably going to be rich in the future. There you go, Justin. Thank you very much, brother. Okay. So the reason why I wanted to highlight this was actually not even that message. And this is the part where, like, she goes full MSM. So her response to the lack of evidence for current theories just goes, yeah, it would be an advantage if it worked, but it doesn't work. Look, I understand that this must be annoying for you. She might as well have just started this with, hey, sweetie. Hey, sweetie, I understand that this must be annoying for you. Trust me, I do not enjoy doing this, but I don't want false claims to spread in the popular science literature. If you do not want to take it from me, ask anyone who's worked on the modifications of gravity. They'll almost certainly tell you the same. Could you imagine a more condescending reply to get from somebody who's never worked in any, she's not an engineer. She's never worked on any classified projects in her entire life. And Sabrine Hassenfelder is trying to tell you that the theories where we had to invent make-believe, dark matter and dark energy, they're unimpeachable, and anybody that approaches you with a counter argument, like, you're just wrong. Ask anybody. You're just wrong. Wow. Yikes, chat. Yikes. This, you guys want to, the reason why I'm highlighting this is I want you to understand. Another follow-up. A little more to help Ash with his chick. Dear chick, don't be like Sabine Hassenfelder. Dudes do not find this attitude attractive. When somebody explains to you something, that a theory that explains stuff that you don't understand, and your response is, you're just wrong. Nope. And also, I have to do this. It's not that I want to. I just have to bring you down because I don't want your false beliefs infecting anybody else. Anybody else that thinks that there might be an explanation for dark energy and dark matter. Can't have those false beliefs getting out there. Jesus Christ. The amount of just like white or, just virtue signaling is crazy. It's not, you understand, how have they been able to keep this hidden? Because you've got people like Sabrine Hassenfelder just like ridiculing you for having an idea that actually makes sense. You have an idea that makes sense? We're just going to ridicule you by other physicists that are accomplished in mainstream media. I mean, no offense. I like Sabine. This was pretty bitchy. This was pretty bitchy. I lost a little bit of respect for her from watching this. And this is why she's a YouTuber and influencer and not somebody that works on real experiments. That's the reason. This is why she's never getting a call up from Lockheed Martin. Northrop Grumman's never ringing her up or whatever. Just the truth, guys. Okay, let's do Control F. Winterberg. Whoa! Friedwardt Winterberg. There he is. Now, this guy has worked on black projects. This was the guy trying to get inertial fusion confinement declassified. He's in her replies on her random blog. In Einstein's general relativity theory, the motion of small positive mass point test particles is ruled by the geodesic equation in a curved four-dimensional space-time. We know about that. But what I believe I have learned from my friend and GRT expert, Heinz Denhen, the motion of the small negative mass point test particle would be ruled by an anti-geodesic, which together with the geodesics is not possible in Riemann spacetime. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But then he comes out and says as a follow-up, Ms. Hassenfelder is right. The equation of motion general relativity is the geodesic, as I was informed by my professor, Heinz Denhen, emeritus at University of Konstanz. This does not work for negative masses because they would require the existence of anti-geodesics, not possible in the Riemann curves. But this does not exclude pole-dipole particles, which have a positive mass by being bound to a negative mass, with their positive mass coming from the positive binding energy to the negative mass. As a member of the academy, I met Bondi in Graz, where I told him his calculation of a mass dipole did not include the positive mass binding, which would prevent it from self-acceleration. He agreed with me on our flight back from Graz to Frankfurt. For negative masses in elementary particle physics, see Landau-Lifshitz. So he name drops Bondi, which is the guy that realized that negative energy is possible. And then he says, we can have negative energy states. don't worry, she doesn't reply to this. That was it. So we actually found a blog where Winterberg interacts with Sabine, and he basically tells her that negative energy states are possible. And she doesn't reply to it at all. And he says that he met Bondi in person and spoke about this with him. Okay, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Please go out and read as many of the DIRDs as you can. Negative energy is the secret to all of this. It's the secret to free energy. It's the secret to propulsion. It's the secret to escaping the matrix, getting the hell off this planet, freeing ourselves from the captors who are hiding this from us, hiding it for our safety. It's for your safety that we're hiding this that's out there. That are making the Chimera human hybrids, as Alex Jones would say. I really hope I don't run across any Chimera human hybrids. And the only way that we break out is that we learn it ourselves. It's not a matter of show and tell. It's a matter of you need to read and understand the physics so that when people come to you and say, this violates the laws of thermodynamics, you can say, no, it doesn't. There's a negative energy region that's always out there. So I'm going to play one last clip before we end for tonight, which is a Hal Puthoff clip, because he explains it so clearly.
Called empty space isn't really empty at all. It's actually full of energy. So instead of being like kind of a quiet, empty lake, it's more like the froth at the base of a waterfall or something. And this energy is basically electromagnetic in nature. And the energy density is quite high. In fact, it's so high that when it was first discovered mathematically, it was thought to be some kind of artifact of the mathematics. But then as time went on, there were even Nobel Prize winning experiments that showed that this energy in so-called empty space was really there. We don't usually notice it because it's so homogeneously distributed. It'd sort of be like sitting in a bathtub with at exactly your body temperature. You might not notice the water. But under certain circumstances, it can be disturbed or perturbed, and then it has effects. As I mentioned, some effects on atomic emission, for example, is what eventually ended up in a Nobel Prize for Willis Lamb of Yale University, and it's called the Lamb shift. And this is a recognition that, in fact, this energy disturbs atoms. So atoms aren't sitting in a void, they're sitting in the sea of energy. So once quantum theorists realized that energy was there, the next question was, well, is there any way to tap it? And it was thought originally that probably not. It might be like trying to tap the heat energy around us. And you can quickly prove for thermodynamic reasons that it'll take more energy to tap it than you'd get out of it, so you don't come out ahead. But back in about 1984, a researcher at Hughes Laboratory by the name of Robert Forward showed that there was a particular effect called the Casimir effect, which demonstrated that, in fact, this energy could be tapped.
So we can tap the energy. The energy is always there. It's like being in the bathtub at same temperature as your body. You wouldn't even notice it. That's why we don't notice it. There is a state below zero. We know it's there because the Lamb shift, Aharonov-Bohm effect. The reason why a hydrogen atom does not radiate energy at rest, even though we know it's moving, is because it's in an equilibrium. We're in an equilibrium. It's undeniable. It explains everything about physics. Science is all out there. All you guys got to do is read. Thank you very much, MH370X. We will meet again on Friday. Hope you guys have a great night. Peace, everybody.
In the fields where the skies are wide, talking about a journey through the cosmic ride. Einstein and Thorne, they set the stage for a trip through time across the space age. Wormholes connect distant points in space, traversable paths to a far-off place. No black holes pull, no crushing weight, just a cosmic tunnel to a distant gate. Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. Exotic matter, negative energy's the key to stabilize the wormhole for you and me. Quantum vacuum, squeeze so tight, creating conditions for this wondrous flight. Static fields and lasers in the lab they play, generating forces in a new kind of way. Gravitational squeezing, Casimir's force, negative zones we need to stay the course. Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. Thin shell formalism plates so fine. Spherical geometry we realign. Energy conditions that we must defy. For a stable wormhole, let's give it a try. Forces balancing the plates, creating the throat, open the gates, from Earth to the stars in a single bound, a shortcut through space profound. Engineers and dreamers hold the key to future worlds and what we could be. With science in hand, we forge ahead through the cosmic paths that we now tread. Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. From the fields to the stars, we break the chains. Understanding the universe, we make the gains. Lil Hula Crunk shines, bringing truth to light. Through his music, we'll explore the night. With wormholes and stargates, our path is clear. Exploring the cosmos.